Hey, this is Lisa Graves with Court Accountability Action here on Legal AF on the Midas Touch Network. And today I am thrilled to be joined by one of the great leaders of the movement to reform the courts. It's Molly Coleman from People's Parity Project. And there's a big event happening this weekend that we want to talk with you about in case you can participate or support in other ways. So Molly, welcome to Legal AF.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I should say welcome back to Legal AF.
It's good to be back.
Yes. So tell everyone about what you've been planning and what's going to happen this weekend.
Yeah, we are very excited. So this Saturday, we will be holding a lawyers rally at the Supreme Court, 1:00 this Saturday, November 15th, where we are working to draw attention to the role that the courts and the Supreme Court specifically have played in allowing the authoritarian consolidation of power that we're seeing in the White House. We think it is very important that folks understand that judges and justices are responsible for the degradation of our democracy. And we think it's critical that lawyers, legal professionals speak out in this moment as folks who understand the system, who have been trained to uphold the system, and who are seeing firsthand that the system is actually part of the problem and needs to be deeply reformed if we are going to build back our democracy.
Well, I really applaud this initiative. When people think of marchers, they don't often think of lawyers. But in countries around the world that have faced rising authoritarianism, the speaking out of members of the legal community has been vital to pushing back on those that declining of democracy. The efforts by authoritarians or people with authoritarian impulses to regress democracy, to backslide, has been met in other countries with resistance by amazing, ordinary people from all walks of life and also from the legal community. And so I really applaud your effort to organize this rally at the U.S. Supreme Court and to invite lawyers to really be visible in that way. Obviously, lawyers are visible in different ways through their pleadings in court, through the cases that they're bringing to the lower courts. But tell us a bit about your perspective on this extraordinary, unprecedented pattern of action by the Roberts Court to thwart temporary restraining orders issued by lower court judges based on their findings of fact, based on findings that people would be irreparably harmed by many of these extreme Trump policies, and by their findings that under current law, under existing law, legal precedent, statutes, the Constitution, regulations, or contracts, these actions by the administration are in violation of the law, transgress the law. And yet this Roberts Court, this court that was handpicked by Leonard Leo to install people who would be aligned with a regressive agenda for America, has been basically overturning, in essence, stopping those temporary restraining orders. And that, I don't think, has ever happened in America's history this way. Can you tell us about your perspective on that, Molly?
Yeah. Oh, there's so much there. I guess to start, maybe I'll just go right back to where you started, which is the international examples that we're looking at and that we're learning from. And I think one of the things that is so critical to understand about why it is so essential that lawyers speak out is that when we have seen democratization movements in other countries, when we have seen pro-democracy grassroots mobilizations in other countries, there are clear instances in which legal organizing has been essential to the movement for true democracy, the push against authoritarianism. And like you mentioned, those are not Poland, Pakistan, those are not places where lawyers are the only ones taking to the streets. They are not the ones leading the movement necessarily, but they play a critical role. And I think that it's really essential for people who can be trusted messengers, who can speak to what's happening, the nuances of everything that you're talking about with what the Roberts Court is doing, who are following that closely and who can really use their position, use their education, use their role to sound the alarm in a really big way. And I think that is what we are trying to do, following in the examples that we have seen in other countries. So, and then everything that the Roberts Court is doing, you are absolutely right. You would know far better than I, but this is unprecedented. This is a level of subservience to a president, to an occupant of the Oval Office that we really haven't seen before. The way in which longstanding tradition, precedent, rules of the court, things that we've taken for granted for so long are being cast to the side in order to advance the agenda of one individual. It is incredibly troubling, but it's not surprising, right? It's like you said, Leonard Leo picked this court for this purpose. Donald Trump handpicked multiple members of this court for this purpose. We knew that this was coming. We know that the Supreme Court has been in Trump's pocket for years now. We know that this court impacted the outcome of the 2024 election in numerous ways. No, the election results did not go to the court, but as I've spoken about before on this program, the results of the election were impacted by the role that the court has played in both advancing the power and the agenda of Donald Trump and stymieing the agenda and the power of Democratic presidents. So they are, from beginning to end, such a crucial part of understanding what is happening right now. And they deserve just as much blame for this moment as Donald Trump, as members of Congress who have enabled this.
Well, that's right. You know, when you think about what's happened with this Supreme Court, this Roberts Court, where Donald Trump put 3 of the 6 members in the Republican-appointed majority on the court, 2 of those seats were basically stolen from Democratic presidents. The first seat that was vacant under President Obama, duly elected twice as president, and yet the Republicans joined with Leonard Leo and his billionaire backers to block that seat from being filled, so that Neil Gorsuch got that seat, and then they pushed Brett Kavanaugh onto the court despite the extraordinary controversy around his past. And you and I and others helped raise alarm bells about that. And then as Americans were voting Trump out of office, then the Republicans moved quickly to install Amy Coney Barrett just weeks before the actual election day, even though they had claimed that people couldn't be confirmed during an election year. And then fast forward to 2024, where, as you point out, Molly, the Roberts Court put its fist on the scale of justice, that's my wording of it, paving the way for Donald Trump's return by blocking a criminal trial that Donald Trump had been indicted for by a grand jury based on his actions around January 6th to subvert that election, the 2020 election that he lost. And so Roberts really paved the way for Trump's return. He was credited in a New York Times story as really orchestrating that ruling. And that ruling sent a signal to some Americans that Trump could do no wrong and did no wrong, even though there was ample evidence to the contrary. And then the bookend of this year, just months later, for this Roberts Court to be acting like an arm of this president in shutting down important orders by lower court judges, it really is an extraordinary time we're finding ourselves in. But I also wanted to talk a bit about what it meant for this court to be handpicked in this way. So, what they were chosen for was to regress the law. And that's what they're doing. And they're doing it on a bunch of different fronts. Some of them are culture war fronts, like on abortion, on affirmative action, on civil rights. Some of it is just pure power, trying to disarm the Voting Rights Act in order to help Trump try to pre-rig the 2026 midterm elections by allowing maps to be redrawn by these Republican legislatures at Trump's, demand in order to protect him from having any accountability by Congress. And then you have other rulings by this court that are, taking on really outlier claims about executive power that coincide with that immunity decision, which was unprecedented, counter-constitutional. But this notion that the president can basically do anything, that he can rearrange the money that Congress allocates, that he can just direct $40 billion to his ally in another country and take money away that's been allocated to the American people. These are outrageous, extraordinary acts. And so are you finding that there's a lot of enthusiasm for the march that you're organizing, the rally you're organizing at the court? And how can people help, Molly?
So we absolutely are finding that there's enthusiasm. And I think it's for so many of those reasons that you laid out, which is that this court is, again, they got us this president. They're enabling this president. They are allowing for outrageous legal claims to be treated as worthy of serious consideration and debate. They are treating birthright citizenship as if it is an open question, when we know that that is a foundational bedrock of who we are as a country. They are so far off the rails. And I think that that is what has led us to this moment where a bunch of lawyers who are not the first to take to the streets, who are not the first to show up at a protest, are saying enough is enough, we have to sound the alarm. We have to show up. So, while I wish we lived in a world where a lawyer's march for democracy was not something that got a lot of attention and which seemed completely unnecessary, the reality is people are fired up and ready to go and want to do something and want to make it known that what is happening is not okay. So folks who are in and near DC can join us. We'll be at the steps of the Supreme Court this Saturday, the 15th at 1:00. We have an incredible lineup of speakers. We are going to have legal leaders, law students, folks who are legal adjacent there, and folks who just care about the rule of law and care about democracy. So if you have made the wise choice to save your money and not go to law school, you are still welcome to join us. And if you can't be there in person, this is really just the start. This is a movement for democracy. It's a legal movement against authoritarianism. It is not a one-off event. We're excited for Saturday. We are excited for what it means, the symbolism of this moment, but we know that it's going to take us continuing to organize within the legal profession for weeks, months, years to come if we are going to get where we need to be as a country. So just really encourage folks to start thinking about the roles that they can play in their community, about their obligation to tell the truth about what is happening, to counter the idea that we still hear in some places that the courts might save us. The courts are not going to save us. The Roberts Court is certainly not going to save us. So we are going to have to find other ways to mobilize and organize and work towards change. And I hope that lawyers and law students and legal professionals who are listening to this know that as folks who understand the legal system, we have a special duty to speak out right now.
Well, that is fantastic. Molly, it's a joy to be a partner and ally and colleague of yours, along with Alex Aronson, as we launched Court Accountability and have had the chance to work collegially with you and People's Parity Project, what you're doing in terms of the organizing of the legal community, of lawyers, law students, political science students, historians, university students, and more. It's just so vitally important. And I know that you are committed to this as a long-term strategy, even though this Congress is so supine, so willing to do Trump's bidding in ways that are just horrifying, I think, from a moral standpoint. This is a long-term battle, and we have to organize now for our future because this arrogant court seems determined to roll back our rights. And until we stop this court through legal reforms, through public accountability, it will continue to decimate our rights with maybe a few outliers here and there. But the reality is that the mask has fallen. This Roberts Court is behaving so arrogantly, disregarding factual findings by other courts, disregarding factual findings by Congress, and just acting almost like an arm of Donald Trump in significant ways. And so, wow, more power to you. I hope the event on Saturday is just fantastic, and I know it will be so inspiring to people. I hope you'll come back on soon and tell us how it went. Maybe we can excerpt some of the speeches and share some of that with our audience once your event concludes. And also just hope that people around the country, lawyers and law students and people who care about the law and justice, who cannot make it necessarily to DC on Saturday, are go to your site, go to peoplesparityproject.org, and sign up, log in, do whatever is necessary to really be part of the movement that you are really spearheading and helping to lead, Molly. So thank you so much for coming on Legal AF. I'm Lisa Graves here from Court Accountability Action with Molly Coleman from People's Parity Project. Tune in to learn about important events like this that Molly's organizing, to plug in if you're in town in DC this weekend, and to join this effort, this long-term effort to restore and expand our freedoms. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you so much.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.